Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Renegade Immortal based on novel. So let's start. After picking up the ancient sword, he scanned it with his divine sense and immediately became excited. He took a deep breath before putting the sword into his bag of holding. This sword was very powerful, however, he never thought that the sword's structure would be similar to the restriction flags. There were numerous restrictions placed on the sword and they were all pure attack restrictions. As a result, this sword was very powerful and therefore useful to Wang Lin. Wang Lin skimmed through them and noticed that most of the restrictions were ones he had never seen before. These restrictions were in groups of 3 with a total of 300 groups. This large number of restrictions was not something Wang Lin could learn in a short period of time. He contained his urge to immediately study them and took out the green-robed cultivator's bag of holding. He scanned it with his divine sense and then his expression became strange again. After a long time, Wang Lin sighed. Killing people for treasures in the celestial realm is indeed tempting. There were only 3 items inside the bag of holding. The first item was a piece of jade, the second item was the return cauldron, and the last item was a bundle of top-quality spirit stones. There were hundreds of top-quality spirit stones. Even with Wang Lin's ability, he couldn't help but become excited at hundreds of top-quality spirit stones. He looked about and couldn't help but mock himself. It seems my ability is still not good enough. In truth, it was hard to blame Wang Lin, because top-quality spirit stones were so rare on Suzaku. There weren't a lot of top-quality spirit stones on the planet the Da-Lu sect was from either, but the Da-Lu sect was an old sect that was tens of thousands of years old, so they naturally had stocked up quite a bit. After reading the jade, he completely understood the situation. The Da-Lu sect had found a total of 37 fragments in the celestial realm after entering it so many times. They then secretly placed transfer arrays on each one of them. However, the transfer arrays were built in the celestial realm, so they couldn't be activated by normal spirit stones. This was also why the green-robed cultivator had so many top-quality spirit stones on him. After this, Wang Lin understood that a lot of cultivators who entered the celestial realm belonged to big sects like the Da-Lu sect and had their own transfer arrays set up all around. Only those that came here for the first time, or independent cultivators, would fly up and randomly land on a fragment. Wang Lin's eyes lit up as he looked at the return cauldron. The function of this cauldron was to return to the planet they came from. So if Wang Lin were to use this, would he return to Suzaku, or to the Da-Lu sect? Wang Lin pondered a little before putting it away, and making sure to keep it apart from his own return cauldron. If he were to accidentally use the wrong one and really got transported to the Da-Lu sect, it would be very dangerous. After finishing all of this, Wang Lin threw the jade he was holding forward and moved it with his divine sense. Suddenly, the jade began to shine as a formation with 2 grooves appeared. Clearly, these 2 grooves were for spirit stones. Without a word, Wang Lin took out 2 top-quality spirit stones and accurately threw them into the grooves. The formation began to move as the jade glowed even brighter. The image of a map eventually appeared. This image wasn't foreign to Wang Lin. It was the same scene everyone saw as they descended into the celestial realm, which now looked like a shattered mirror. In this image, there were 37 fragments that were glowing, creating a contrast against the countless grey fragments. Wang Lin looked at the image and recalled the fragment he had fallen down to. His eyes quickly moved and found where he was currently located. His right hand pointed at one of the fragments. The image disappeared and the formation activated, then Wang Lin's figure disappeared. On one of the fragments at the end of the celestial realm, the wind was very violent and there was a large rift in the sky. Chilly wind blew out from the rift and into that fragment. It was as if the entire fragment was shrouded in the rift's power. This place didn't have any mountains, it looked like a desert. This place originally had mountains and rivers, but during the collapse of the celestial realm, one of the celestial's treasures fell here and created that rift. As for the treasure, it shattered after creating the rift and turned into a violent wind that blew across the fragment. At this moment, in the middle of this violent wind, a formation appeared in the sky. The formation formed a pillar of light that blocked the wind, but the pillar was shaking violently. It was as if it could shatter at any moment. Wang Lin's figure appeared in the formation. He took a look around and frowned. This fragment was simply too different from the last one he was on. If that one was considered relatively intact, then this one was completely destroyed. According to logic, There should be no reason for the Da Lu sect to place a formation here. Wang Lin pondered a bit. He saw the pillar shaking violently, so he quickly charged out of the formation. Gradually, these people got closer and closer, then Wang Lin noticed black figures that appeared above them. These figures were young men flying on clouds. They looked like they were guarding these women as they scanned their surroundings. Wang Lin took a deep breath and put away his restriction flag. Those people were now in front of him. He didn't dodge or avoid them, he simply let them walk right past him. One of the boys directly walked through Wang Lin's body. After this group of people was off in the distance, Wang Lin let out a bitter smile. He had already noticed that these people weren't real. They were just illusions. He guessed that there was a mysterious power on this fragment that could create illusions of scenes from the celestial realm before it was shattered. Wang Lin looked at the people that had just left and felt sorrow. Those people must have been important during their time, but now everything was gone with the wind, and the only thing that remained was an illusion. What exactly happened to the celestial realm to destroy it to this degree? This question once again appeared in Wang Lin's mind. After pondering for a while, he followed the illusions. These people walked farther and farther, until they finally stopped at a location. Wang Lin looked from a distance and suddenly noticed the scene change. A building suddenly appeared. There were many tables inside with fruits and wines placed on them. There were a few people sitting around the tables talking to each other. Every now and then, they would wave their finger and techniques would appear as if they were debating about something. Wang Lin watched this scene and especially paid attention to all of the techniques shown. He took a deep breath. These people didn't use any chants or seals, they simply waved their hands to use techniques. It was as if the power of the heavens were in the palms of their hands and could be used as they wished. One of the people suddenly stood up and angrily yelled at someone. Then his hand reached out and created a giant ball of purple lighting. He pointed up and the ball of purple lightning slowly ascended into the sky. Then the illusion changed. This time, many celestials flew into the sky with faces filled with anger. But just at this moment, the hand that shattered the sword flipped around and plummeted to the ground. A ray of silver light suddenly flew out from the hand and went toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin was absorbed inside this scene and was suddenly shocked. The moment the silver light appeared, he became alert and threw out the beast trap. The thunder toad appeared, spat out a ball of lightning, and collided with the ray of silver light. After a series of rumbles, the thunder toad backed up 100 feet. Wang Lin's expression was gloomy as he jumped onto the thunder toad and went to the woman behind the silver light. Wang Lin slowly said, "Red butterfly." When he was immersed inside the illusion, this woman suddenly appeared and attacked him without a word. If Wang Lin's divine sense hadn't already reached late-stage soul formation level, then he would have thought that the silver light was part of the illusion and would have been killed on the spot. Red Butterfly's expression was cold as she stared at Wang Lin and said, "You indeed know me. Speak, who the hell are you?" Wang Lin's expression remained calm as he said, "Who doesn't know Shui Yu's genius?" Red Butterfly coldly said, "Not going to say. Then you might as well remain here forever." With that, she raised her right hand and a ray of silver light appeared in her palm. She coldly stared at Wang Lin. Wang Lin laughed out loud. His eyes lit up and he said, "I heard that Red Butterfly managed to reach the late stage of soul formation in just 100 years. Although 100 years isn't long, it's a lifetime for mortals. I wonder, are your parents still alive?" Red Butterfly frowned. She waved the silver light in her hand and then the sky was suddenly covered with specks of silver light. The light started to rain down upon Wang Lin. Wang Lin slapped the thunder toad, then its abdomen swelled up and it spat out a ball of lightning. The ball of lightning floated into the air, then Wang Lin shouted, "Explode." Suddenly, the ball of lightning exploded and rays of lightning blocked the specks of silver light. This allowed Wang Lin time to quickly retreat. As for the thunder toad, after it spat out the ball of lightning, it quickly retreated with Wang Lin. While Wang Lin retreated, he shouted, "Red Butterfly, do your parents have any other children? If not, then doesn't that mean they have no one to send them off? That means you lack filial piety." Red Butterfly frowned again, as she coldly looked at Wang Lin and charged after him. She waved her right hand and a flying sword suddenly appeared above her head. The flying sword shot out after Wang Lin at several times her flying speed. There was hint of a domain inside the flying sword. The flying sword contained such a powerful emotionless domain that snowflakes began to appear around the sword. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He slapped his bag of holding and the restriction flag appeared. Black fog suddenly surrounded the area. The fog formed the shape of dragons and charged at the flying sword. Subsequently, Wang Lin didn't retreat anymore. Instead, he disappeared inside the black fog. When he reappeared, he was a dozen feet behind Red Butterfly. His hand formed a seal, and the spiritual energy in his body moved and a black and white swirl appeared. At this moment, the life and death domain expanded from this swirl. Red Butterfly frowned again and said, "Know your place." With that, she raised her right hand and grabbed at the air. Suddenly, 5 rays of cold energy shot out from her finger and formed 5 snowy mountains, all of which fell toward Wang Lin. This snow is born in the sky and dies on the earth. Wang Lin's eyes remained calm as the black and white swirl activated. Although the enemy was a late-stage soul formation cultivator, since she wanted to kill him, he must at least give her a fight. The life and death swirl suddenly enlarged. The 5 snowy mountains immediately began to melt, and by the time they descended upon the swirl, they had already shrunk to less than half of their original size. The moment they collided, a sliver of emotionless domain entered Wang Lin's body, causing him to cough out a mouthful of blood. The blood immediately turned to ice after leaving his body. Wang Lin could feel that his body was surrounded by coldness. His memories of his family and loved ones started to fade. Wang Lin's heart didn't panic. He knew that once all these memories were gone, he would become an emotionless killer. This would become a seed in his mind for Red Butterfly to control his life and death. The life and death domain activated in his body. Scenes of when he turned into immortal, Daenerys' parents' lives and deaths, and various experiences as a mortal solidified in his heart. Using this moment of clarity, Wang Lin shouted, 100 years, an entire lifetime, and the love of one's parents is not something the heavens can erase. Red Butterfly, even if your parents have entered the reincarnation cycle and are already watching you from behind, do you dare to turn around and look? Although Red Butterfly's expression remained the same, Wang Lin could feel that the emotionless domain in his body had weakened a bit. The life and death domain cycled through his body rapidly as his body disappeared. When he reappeared, he was on top of the Thunder Toad. He then quickly retreated. Wang Lin waved the restriction flag in his hand and 100 dragons, made of the restriction smoke charged toward Red Butterfly. Wang Lin used a few breaths of time to force the emotionless domain out of his body so it could no longer harm him. His expression was dark, as what had just happened was very dangerous. If anything had gone wrong, he would have become part of the cycle and no longer have the right to compete with the heavens. A late-stage soul formation cultivator's domain is really powerful. Wang Lin took a deep breath. In truth, the moment Red Butterfly sneak attacked him, their battle had already begun. Wang Lin had seen the ice heart tactic. The key was to expel all emotions and then to crush and refine them until one reaches a state of no emotion. This was Red Butterfly's Dao heart. From the day he had first seen the ice heat tactic, Wang Lin thought about how Red Butterfly had reached the late stage of soul formation in only 100 years. On one hand, it showed how powerful she was, but on the other hand, it was also one of her greatest weaknesses. Without time to practice one's Dao heart, they simply can't compare to the old monsters who had lived for much longer. Also, with only 100 years, there was no way to completely erase all of her emotions. This was why Wang Lin brought up her parents. Only by making her remember the past and feel a sliver of emotion for Wang Lin to use to break her Dao heart, could he have a chance of winning. But this woman's Dao heart was firm and wasn't affected by Wang Lin's words. Only when Wang Lin activated his life and death domain to resist her emotionless domain did he realize that his words were working. Although he didn't say much and the effect wasn't obvious, his words planted a seed in her heart. If she can't remove this seed, she will never reach the soul transformation stage. Wang Lin took a deep breath. He knew that with Red Butterfly's talent, this seed won't last long. However, if he repeatedly touches that weak spot and proves that his life and death domain is the real path while her emotionless domain has flaws, then this woman will no longer be scary. Red Butterfly didn't care about these dragons that were charging toward her. The moment the dragons got close, Red Butterfly's origin soul came out, and she waved her hand. A ring of blue light expanded and then all of the dragons turned to ice. She stared at the direction where Wang Lin had retreated to and her eyes became even colder. She understood what Wang Lin's intentions were. Originally, it wouldn't be an issue, but Wang Lin's domain was very strange. He had managed to obtain a sliver of life and death from the reincarnation cycle. The moment the snowy mountains landed on the swirl, she clearly felt the life and death domain enter her body, causing memories of the past to be brought back. Although she was able to quickly remove those images, Wang Lin's words entered her ears. Even if they have entered the reincarnation cycle, they are watching you from behind. The moment those words came out, Red Butterfly's memories became chaotic. Although it only took a moment for her to clear them up, she had also missed the chance to kill him. A mere early-stage soul formation cultivator, but he indeed is interesting to try to ruin my Dao heart. This person can't be allowed to live. Red Butterfly's eyes returned to normal and she chased after Wang Lin. While Wang Lin ran, he waved his hand and put away the Thunder Toad. However, a late-stage soul formation cultivator's speed was far above an early-stage soul formation cultivator's. Soon, he felt slivers of cold energy appear behind him. Wang Lin took a deep breath. Just as he was about to escape, his mind suddenly went blank and he remembered that giant handprint that he had seen in the palace. He tried to understand it but failed in the end. As he ran, the image of the handprint became clearer and clearer in his mind. He suddenly remembered the illusion he was shown, specifically the handprint that crushed the sword and descended upon the land. The illusion of that handprint quickly merged with the image of the handprint from the palace. Under this strange state of mind, Wang Lin's body suddenly flew up, and he quickly climbed up the sky. Red Butterfly sneered as she chased behind him and thought, "It doesn't matter if you run forward or up, you won't be getting away that easily." Wang Lin rose up into the sky and suddenly stopped. He looked at the ground as if he had realized something and gently pressed down with his hand. Suddenly, the sky darkened and various streams of energy gathered under him, forming a giant palm right below Wang Lin. The palm pressed down toward Wang Lin. For the first time, Red Butterfly's expression changed. She wanted to dodge, but the palm was very big and it arrived very quickly. It went through Red Butterfly's body and landed on the ground, creating waves of dust. She was shocked and quickly checked her body to find that nothing was wrong. She didn't know that this palm of Wang Lin's had no power, and was only him trying to understand the handprint. After throwing out the palm, all of the spiritual energy inside of Wang Lin's body disappeared. Due to the beast trap, he was pretty used to this situation, so he quickly chowed down some pills. Before the pills even fully dissolved, he took out the jade, opened the formation, and randomly picked a location. When Red Butterfly raised her head, Wang Lin had already disappeared. A flash of coldness appeared in her eyes. This person has access to a transfer array, so his identity must not be normal. Also, his Dao heart is strong, he's very cautious, has a strange domain, and endless an amount of magic treasures. He must be the most elite disciple of a rank 5 cultivation country. Red Butterfly's eyes lit up as she turned around and flew off into the distance, looking for celestial spiritual energy. Wang Lin didn't carefully check the fragment he went to this time, he randomly picked one. When he arrived, he couldn't help but be startled. This fragment was like a world of fire with lava covering the ground. From time to time, there would be hot bubbles that burst and spread out a pungent smell. The sky was dark, and every now and then, spatial rifts would appear. Wang Lin floated in the air as he looked around. This fragment was very different from the other 2 fragments he had been on. This fragment looked like it was ready to collapse at any moment, especially because of the spatial rifts in the sky that looked like the mouths of devils. Wang Lin frowned. He didn't know why the Da Lu Sect's transfer arrays were all set on these dangerous fragments. Did this mean that the more dangerous the fragment was, the more celestial spiritual energy there was? Wang Lin flew out of the transfer array with these questions in his mind. He had his divine sense spread out as he flew down to dodge the spatial rifts. Everything was fine until he was 100 feet from the ground and a spatial rift silently appeared beside him. Wang Lin was surprised because his divine sense didn't notice it at all. However, he wasn't new to the cultivation world, so he was able to quickly react. Just as the spatial rift appeared, he was able to force his body to move to the side. The rift appeared quickly, but disappeared just as quickly. Almost at the moment it appeared, it disappeared. Wang Lin's forehead was covered in cold sweat as he looked to his side. A huge section of his clothes had disappeared as if it were eaten. He carefully looked around. At this moment, the amount of danger in this fragment could match the land of the ancient god. The way that spatial rift had appeared was simply too eerie. Wang Lin wasn't even able to detect it in advance. Wang Lin pondered a bit before slowly descending. He spent an entire hour descending those 100 feet. This position was a relatively safe altitude. There weren't many spatial rifts appearing at this height, and the heat from the lava wasn't very powerful. But Wang Lin's caution didn't lower one bit as he slowly moved forward. He wanted to see why the Da Lu sect had placed a transfer array here. The surroundings weren't completely silent. Rumbling sounds came from the ground every once in a while, or the heat bubbles would burst. With these sounds intertwining with each other, it made people feel the heat in their hearts. As he flew, Wang Lin gradually learned the landscape of this fragment. This fragment wasn't very large. In fact, it was the smallest of the 3 fragments he had visited so far. Aside from the hole in the ground to the southeast, there was nothing else unusual about this fragment. On the way down, many spatial rifts appeared near them, but the two seemed to be able to detect them somehow and always moved out of the way ahead of time. The speed at which they descended was several times faster than Wang Lin's. The cultivation level of both of them was early-stage soul formation, so they weren't able to detect Wang Lin, whose divine sense had already reached the late stage of soul formation. The 6th junior brother looked at the hole on the ground and asked, "3rd senior brother, is this the Celestial Beast Temple?" "That is correct. This place is one of the 16 Celestial Beast Temples. Ancestor found this place by accident after coming to the Celestial Realm many times, but this place should be known by many people. The last time I came here, there were 3 groups of people here looking for Celestial Beast souls," the 3rd senior brother answered. Then he suddenly seemed to remember something and said, "Remember that you can't use instant movement inside, so you must be careful." As the two talked, their bodies sunk and entered the hole. Wang Lin's shadow appeared outside. His body disappeared as he silently entered the hole. He spread out his divine sense to carefully check his surroundings, and also looked to keep track of the two before him. "3rd senior brother, after so many years, will there even be any celestial beast souls remaining? And even if there are any remaining, it would be hard to obtain them with just the 2 of us." "6th junior brother, you don't understand. If there are any celestial beast souls remaining, they would be very weak due to the lack of celestial spiritual energy for them to feed on. Once we find one and bring it back to the sect, we will have done a great deed for the sect." Back then, Ancestor was able to find a celestial beast soul here, united the planet Da Lu, and made the Da Lu sect famous. Wang Lin became excited as he listened to the 2 of them talk. Although he didn't know what the Celestial Beast Temple was, going by the name and what those 2 had said, he had his own guesses on what it was. This place should be the home of celestial beasts in the celestial realm. Not all of the celestial beasts had died in the disaster, and some remained to continue breeding. This was why this place had a transfer array. Wang Lin's eyes lit up as he followed behind them. This hole wasn't very deep, so they quickly landed on the ground. The 2 quickly flew forward after they landed. Wang Lin spread out his divine sense and was shocked. This place was a very large cave. The structure was like a beehive with numerous entrances. He pondered a bit before flying toward one of the entrances. This entrance was exactly the one the 2 before him had entered. As he flew, he suddenly stopped as he saw with his divine sense that the 2 before him had stopped about 100 feet in front of him. Before the 2 was a stone statue about a dozen feet tall. This stone statue was that of a very large bird-like beast. "6th junior brother, the harvest this time is pretty good. There is enough celestial spiritual energy to form 2 pieces of celestial jade, 1 for each of us, and enough to meet the minimum requirement set by the sect." The 3rd senior brother let out a laugh as he slowly pushed the stone statue back in place. The 6th junior brother nodded, looked at the gourd, and asked, "That must be the soul purification gourd." The 3rd senior brother took out a pill and swallowed it. He waved the gourd in his hand and proudly said, "That is correct. This is one of the 3 soul purification gourds personally refined by the Ancestor. With this, one can quickly gather celestial spiritual energy, and doesn't need to waste time refining it." Wang Lin saw this scene with his divine sense, and his attention suddenly shifted to the gourd. This gourd was a great treasure. If he had this, it would reduce the amount of time needed to spend refining celestial spiritual energy, and allow him to gather even more. He let out a cold smile. From the looks of those 2, they belonged to the Da Lu sect. Since he had already angered the sect, he might as well find a way to steal that treasure. The 2 of them were both early-stage soul formation cultivators, though the 6th junior brother had just reached the soul formation stage, and his cultivation wasn't stable yet. However, the two of them must have something up their sleeves, so Wang Lin didn't act recklessly and waited for the right moment. These two talked for a bit before flying toward a cave entrance. This place was filled with twists and turns. If Wang Lin didn't have his divine sense locked onto them, he would have lost them. After the two of them moved for a long time, the third senior brother stopped as he stared into the distance with a strange expression on his face. In the distance, there was a corpse leaning against the wall. There was a ball of light in the corpse's hand emitting waves of gentle light. Wang Lin scanned it with his divine sense, then slightly frowned. This skeleton was very weird, as it was white. Although it was not abnormal for a skeleton to appear here, the color of the bones should have changed with the passage of time, and there should have been signs of corrosion. However, this skeleton had no sign of any of those. Also, the ball of light in the skeleton's hand contained a sliver of celestial energy, so it was definitely not a normal object. Wang Lin didn't know why, but he felt a sense of danger. He pondered for a bit before watching coldly from afar. Third senior brother's eyes lit up and he said, "Sixth junior brother, go up and see what that ball of light is." Sixth junior brother hesitated before nodding and walking forward. Just as he was getting a closer look, Wang Lin suddenly felt that sense of danger becoming even stronger. Just at this moment, the third senior brother suddenly shouted, "Back off." As he spoke, he waved his hand and the sword flew off his back and slashed at the space just in front of sixth junior brother. The skeleton turned to dust and the ball of light flew into the air. A sliver of energy shot out from the ball of light and charged toward the sixth junior brother's brow. At this moment, the sword energy arrived. The sliver of energy let out an unwilling roar as it drilled into the wall and disappeared. This scene happened in a blink of an eye. Sixth junior brother's forehead was covered in cold sweat as he silently stared at third senior brother. Sixth junior brother, chase. Third senior brother revealed a very excited expression as he said that sentence and quickly chased after it. Sixth junior brother hesitated for a bit before clenching his teeth and followed. Senior brother, what the hell was that? Our luck is pretty good. If my guess is not wrong, that is feed for the celestial beasts, something the celestial beasts love to eat. Normally speaking, there are chances of finding celestial beast souls where these feeds are found. That skeleton before must have been ambushed by it and had all of its flesh devoured by it. Junior brother, please don't blame me for this. I just realized what it was, otherwise, I wouldn't have asked you to check. The third senior brother explained as he continued to chase. Sixth junior brother lowered his head and slowly said, "Mere feed for celestial beasts, and it has that much power. If that thing had entered my brow, I would have turned into a skeleton." Third senior brother laughed and said, "Junior brother doesn't need to worry. That thing completely relies on physical attacks, and has no abilities at all. It fears techniques and abilities the most. As long as you don't let it enter your body, all you need to use is your sword energy, and you can easily split it in two." As the two chased, Wang Lin followed behind them. Although the two Marshall brothers looked like they had a good relationship, Wang Lin could easily see that the third senior brother had evil intentions. The scene from before was clearly because the third senior brother noticed that something was off and used his junior brother as bait to lure out the feed. Wang Lin casually followed behind them as his divine sense focused on what was before him. He saw the two brothers pursue through the cave system as they continued to go down. Before long, they were in the deep parts of the cave. The third senior brother felt slightly uneasy. Although he had been here once before, he had never gone this far in and wondered if he should continue chasing. Just at this moment, Wang Lin noticed that the celestial beast feed's speed slowed down, and it disappeared into a fist-sized hole in the wall. Wang Lin's divine sense quickly followed it in, and his expression quickly changed. He saw that the walls inside the cave were covered in these thin lines, with one end buried inside the wall, and the other end slowly swinging back and forth. At this moment, the sixth junior brother also noticed this and his expression became ugly. The two looked at each other and slowly backed away. But it was too late. The celestial feeds charged out of the small hole and appeared before the two in the blink of an eye. Third senior brother's expression changed immediately. Without any hesitation, he shouted, "Two sword spirit world." His sword flew into the air and slashed down. Sixth junior brother clenched his teeth, and also sent his sword up and slashed down as well. Suddenly, two rays of sword energy became like two dragons intertwined together, and destroyed all of the celestial beast feeds that were charging at them. Then it crashed into the hole on the wall, making it 10 meters wide. This power caused many parts of this already unstable celestial beast temple to collapse. More slivers came out from the hole. Inside the cave, the black skeleton was extremely eye-catching. "Let's go." Third senior brother immediately retreated, after saying one line, and sixth junior brother quickly followed with his scalp tingling. The speed at which the two were retreating couldn't match the slivers, so after only a few steps, the slivers had already caught up. A vicious look flashed across the third senior brother's eyes, as he raised his hand and landed a hit on the sixth junior brother's back. Sixth junior brother's head suddenly turned around with a mocking expression. His hand quickly caught third senior brother's hand and he said, "Third senior brother, what were you planning on doing?" With that, his aura suddenly changed. His cultivation level changed from someone who had just stepped into the early stage of soul formation into mid-stage soul formation. He quickly grabbed third senior brother's bag of holding and sword before throwing third senior brother toward the celestial beast feeds. Third senior brother's expression suddenly changed, but before he could finish speaking, the swarm of slivers drilled into his body. In an instant, the body of an early-stage soul formation cultivator turned into a skeleton. His origin soul suddenly flew out, but just at that moment, the sixth junior brother formed seals to block his path. This pause made the origin soul lose its chance to escape, but the black line suddenly shot out and dug into the origin soul. By the time the black line left, the origin soul had already been devoured by it. "Sorry, senior brother." Seeing what had happened, the sixth junior brother quickly escaped using the time third senior brother had bought with his life. After these slivers passed by, Wang Lin waited for a few moments before charging toward the cave that had been opened up by the sword energy. His body was as fast as lightning and appeared inside the cave. Suddenly, some remaining slivers came out of the wall and charged at Wang Lin. Wang Lin let out a snort and used his restriction flag to block them. He knew that he was short on time, so he reached toward the sword in the skeleton's hand without any hesitation. But suddenly, a powerful pressure came from the sword. It was like Wang Lin's hand was pressing on spikes, as small holes appeared on his hand, causing him to quickly pull back. At this moment, the swarm was heading back with the black line in front. When Wang Lin saw this with his divine sense, he immediately gave up on the sword and grabbed the jade. He decided to give up on taking the piece of metal and quickly charged out of the cave, moving along the wall. The swarm returned to the cave and then a terrifying roar came from inside. The black line quickly charged out of the cave and waved its body for a bit before chasing after where Wang Lin went. Wang Lin moved as fast as he could through the cave, and as he flew, he released wandering souls with a simple command to help him confuse the black line chasing him. As he escaped, he could feel the wandering souls being destroyed one by one. He could see through the wandering souls that the black line seemed to have gone mad, as it was charging through the walls of the caves and destroying all the wandering souls. There were many caves in the Celestial Beast Temple, but many were destroyed in the disaster a long time ago, and more were destroyed under the power of the two swords. Now, with the black line charging through the walls like crazy, many caves were able to withstand it and collapsed. As Wang Lin flew, he tried to teleport, but every time he did so, he felt a force surrounding him and interrupting his teleportation. He let out a sigh as he stopped trying and continued to fly upwards. He slowly felt that the amount of wandering souls he had left behind stopped decreasing. The black line had clearly lost track of Wang Lin. However, just as this moment, rumbling sounds came from all around him and Wang Lin quickly backed up. The cave before him suddenly collapsed. When he spread out his divine sense, he found that more than half of the Celestial Beast Temple was now buried. If a mortal saw this, they wouldn't know what to do, but Wang Lin had already reached the soul formation stage. So as long as he doesn't meet that black line, he will have nothing to be afraid of. He pondered a bit, but didn't leave immediately. He spread out his divine sense, and was shocked to find that the sixth junior brother hadn't died. He was moving through the caves close by. And from the direction he was traveling, he wasn't going up, but was coming toward Wang Lin. Wang Lin's eyes lit up, and he let out a playful smile. This sixth junior brother was a ruthless person. He hid his cultivation level until the right moment. From the looks of his path, he was coming toward Wang Lin, but Wang Lin wasn't sure of his objective. If he comes with intent to kill Wang Lin, then Wang Lin won't mind killing him for his treasures. Although this person was at the mid-stage of soul formation, Wang Lin was confident that with the magic treasures he possessed, he had an 80% chance of winning. Wang Lin waved the restriction flag and the black fog disappeared into the surrounding walls. He placed his hand on the bracelet on his hand and silently waited for the arrival of the sixth brother. Not long after, a person came out of the wall Wang Lin was staring at. The moment the person came out, he became very cautious as he looked at Wang Lin. He carefully took a few looks before letting a laugh. Fellow cultivator, I believe that we are the only two people remaining in this collapsed celestial beast temple. Wang Lin chuckled. He realized that this person knew he was following them. This means that there was a chance that this person was still hiding his cultivation level. Wang Lin calmly asked, this place has already collapsed. Why did fellow cultivator come find me instead of looking for a way out? The sixth junior brother looked around. Without moving forward, he said, fellow cultivator followed us the entire way. I believe you also saw the celestial beast feed. Wang Lin faintly smiled at how sixth junior brother dodged the question and asked, what does fellow cultivator mean? Sixth junior brother's eyes lit up, revealing a mysterious expression, and he said, fellow cultivator doesn't have to worry. My name is Sun Lei. I'm not afraid to tell fellow cultivator this. I'm not really part of the Da Lu sect. I'm only mixed in. Sun Lei was startled. He was a smart person, so he immediately realized what that meant and said, I only want the celestial sword. The other two will belong to you. How is that? Wang Lin shook his head. Sun Lei's expression became ugly and he said, if fellow cultivator really wants the celestial sword, then you can take it, but the remaining two treasures will belong to me. With fellow cultivator's knowledge, you must know that the celestial sword by itself is far beyond any of the other two items alone, but if you place the metal and jade together, then their worth is very close. Wang Lin hesitated for a bit. There was some type of restriction placed on the celestial sword, so unless it gets refined for a very long time, it will be impossible to even pick it up. Wang Lin was confident that he won't be able to pick it up in a short period of time. This person clearly didn't know that about the sword. Thinking about this, he smiled and said, I don't want the sword. Sun Lei let out a breath and smiled again. Since that is the case, how about we go back to the cave? Wang Lin shook his head and said, I'm not interested in the other two objects either. You? Sun Lei's eyes became gloomy. If it wasn't for the fact that he was afraid that Wang Lin was hiding his cultivation level, he would have already gone up and killed Wang Lin. Why else would he listen to so much nonsense? Sun Lei took a deep breath and suppressed his anger. The more Wang Lin acted like this, the more obvious it was that Wang Lin was hiding his cultivation level. How would Wang Lin dare to speak to him like this otherwise? Wang Lin calmly looked at Sun Lei and slowly said, fellow cultivator Sun, you want me to help you retrieve the celestial sword for two items that might not even be obtainable. Do you think that I'm 3 years old? Sun Lei took a deep breath, stared at Wang Lin, and asked, fellow cultivator, what do you want? He was tired of his nonsense as well. If Wang Lin wasn't willing, then he would risk it once himself. Wang Lin leisurely said, I noticed that when fellow cultivators arrived, you guys were able to detect the rifts before they appeared. Sun Lei let out a laugh. He slapped his bag of holding and took out a piece of jade. He threw it at Wang Lin and said, full search tactic. It is a technique of the Da Lu sect. It is not a problem to give it to you as a gift. Wang Lin took the jade and put it away after scanning it, then said, fellow cultivator is indeed quick on his decisions, so I won't beat around the bush anymore either. I want that gourd from your third senior brother's bag, then I'll be willing to take this risk with you. Not possible. Sun Lei said, without any hesitation. This gourd is the reason I mixed into the Da Lu sect, so please don't make it hard for me. Wang Lin pondered a bit. Although it was kind of worth it to kill this person for the purification gourd, he would have to use up a lot of his treasures. However, this place was the celestial realm. It was very dangerous, and there was Red Butterfly. If he were to use up too many treasures now, then when he faces powerful cultivators, or Red Butterfly, he will be in trouble. Thinking about this, Wang Lin nodded and said, fine, give me that purification wood and I'll help you once. However, whether you obtain the celestial sword or not will depend on your own luck. Even if you can't obtain the sword, the purification wood is still mine. Sun Lei nodded and said, that is natural. However, I can't give it to you now. It won't be too late to give it to you once we are at the cave entrance. I have to be on guard as well. Wang Lin's eyes lit up. He waved his sleeves and said, fellow cultivator, lead the way. Without a word, Sun Lei moved toward one of the uncollapsed caves. The two walked toward the cave, keeping a certain distance from each other. It was obvious that neither of them trusted each other, so they were on guard against each other. Sun Lei sneered and thought, even if you are hiding your cultivation level, once I get the sword and you try to steal it, I'll leave the celestial realm and use the sect treasure to kill you. This was why he asked him to come help with the treasure, even though he was afraid that Wang Lin was hiding his cultivation level. This video will end here.